you just need two things in this sport: humor and patience. And I looked back and I said, Carol, that's really true with any performance-oriented discipline. Trading, tennis, any Olympic field, you need to have humor, because that's what keeps you loose and relaxed. And we all know that you can't trade when you're tense and anxious, and you're just going to miss everything. So I'm going to give you one comment that I thought was perfect that I heard from a woman in her 80s today who was over at my farm giving a dressage clinic, and she is an Olympian. Carol Grant is her name. She rode in the Olympics in the 80s, and she's just taught like all the top, dressage riders in the country, and all over the world. And so she had such a sweet demeanor, very friendly, very encouraging, and so forth. And she was teaching this gal who was a little bit newer. She'd been a rider for 30 years, but she had changed styles. All right. So she had changed styles. And so she was newer to this type of methodology. And she looked at me and she said, you just need two things in this sport: humor and patience. And I looked back and I said, Carol, that's really true with any performance-oriented discipline. Trading, tennis, any Olympic field, you need to have humor, because that's what keeps you loose and relaxed. And we all know that you can't trade when you're tense and anxious, and you're just going to miss everything. It's like, you're steering too hard at the screen and you just won't see it. But have you ever noticed that if you're sort of being casual and you really hadn't planned on trading much that day, and maybe you're doing some other things, but looking at the corner of your eye, and then you just see that perfect spot, you see, because you're more relaxed, you're loose, and humor, it goes a long ways towards that. And we have to stay positive. We can't be down on ourselves and negative. And then the patience, because I think everybody, you probably hear this from all the people that you've interviewed, everybody grossly underestimates just how long it takes. And to that, I've been trying to do certain disciplines, the dressage, for example, and I've been working on that for 40 years. And I still feel like a freaking amateur, total amateur. But I'm not riding 8 hours a day, 6 horses a day. So I'll never be, to the level that I would want to be. Trading's very much the same way. You want to commit to this. You want to rise to a certain level. You are modeling, you're studying charts, you're doing statistics and notes by hand, keeping track of your own records. Everybody has different ways of going about things. I do everything by hand and writing stuff down in notes. I always have a notebook right on my desk. I can't be typing into Excel spreadsheets, but I had a colleague, that's all he did. He loved typing everything in, and dealing with that. So there's no right or wrong, but I'm talking about the immersion of it, you see? And these people that think that you're going to get better by reading stuff on Twitter, reading the blogs, FinTwit, this or that, taking 5 different subscriptions, it's sort of like I remember Arch Crawford talking about how if you're wearing 2 watches, you'll never know what time it is. If you wear 1 watch, you know what time it is. So if I'm hearing 2 different voices and different opinions, it's going to totally confuse my brain. If I'm doing my own work and I say, here's the level, how are we going to act here? I think there's pretty good odds that we can go up and test this gap area. Now I'm in a good position to say it's working or it's not working. I can trust my own judgment. You see, so I don't remember where I started off on this particular tangent, but it
doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter where you started, because that's about all I can say. And I don't interview that many people.
I don't know.
But I do have access, because we have a Discord channel, to many, many traders who I am able to observe, which is better than interviewing people, quite frankly. And the things that you're talking about are things that I talk about on a consistent basis, except that I believe believe that you say it even better than I do. People understand this is what it is. My big line is always making money in this business is not about your ability to predict. It's about your ability to find good risk reward and execute on that. And that's it, right? And I think Linda is saying that also. Right? It's nothing to do.
Yeah, and it just takes
she won't even make a prediction because she realizes just how, first of all, how damaging it is to her own psyche, right? And B, just how stupid and irrelevant it is. It's stupid and irrelevant. That's how I see it. And I tell people, if you're going to try to learn from somebody, don't learn from the person who is so adamant about a trade. This market's going up, this market's going down, and then maybe it does. And you think that therefore that person's great and that's who you're going to learn from. That's the last person you want to learn from, in my view, right? People that consistently feel like they have to have opinions and show if they're right or wrong. It's just not going to work. And those are, in my view, the wrong personalities. So this is the type of stuff you want to hear. Again, in my view, what Linda has just spent the last 45 minutes saying is it's masterclass shit on how to approach this and succeed over long periods of time, which is exactly why she has succeeded over a long period of time. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I would say that 98% of everything I've learned has been through experience. The market's not like anybody taught me. Somebody taught me in the very beginning how to price the options, because we didn't have the models back then. Right. And I then observed the person that backed me initially, how important it was to have a routine, a routine and a ritual every day, the same way, the same time for your preparation, because I would have really been negligent in that area. It's not my strong suit, being totally, anal about these things, but just through observing him, that was a good example. But also I just wanted to say, because I've mentioned it a lot in the past, this tailored trading technique book, and it's not that it's always so relevant in one regards with the technicals pertaining to today's electronic markets, but George Douglas Taylor, who started off as a pit trader in the grains and then, was even traded stocks and stuff and was very adept at this in one day, hold it for 2 days, out the next, that type of thing. And if you read his book, you will notice that the last, I think 1 or 2 chapters in his book is devoted to position trading. So he also did trade positions. I think it was very much based on seasonals because he was a grain trader, the seasonals and some cycles, that time of year and stuff. So he talks about how you accumulate to put on a position and hold it and so forth. So he wasn't just this buy day, sell short day that you sort of hear as a cliche. But if you read the book and you take a yellow highlighter and outline the things that are sort of like advice, not technical advice, but like mental advice, that's gone a long ways. So for example, he will say, once you're in a trade and then you exit the trade where you were supposed to exit it, which was like selling above the previous day's high. In other words, you're selling into strength because you have a market there to take the inventory off your hands. You don't want to be trying to get out when the whole world's trying to get out, like in a silver free fall. Okay. And that might not be as pertinent if you're just trading one contract of a micro, but if you had larger position, you need a market to be there for you to sell your inventory into. And so he would sell once you have exited your position. If the market still goes higher, so what? Who cares? You locked in your profits, right? You did what you were supposed to do. Let it go. That's what he says. Let it go. On to the next trade. On to the next trade, because we'll see the times that, I sold and I got out too early and it went here. But then we don't look at all the times that we did exit and it was the right thing. See, so this ability to immediately reframe things is so important.
Well, let me interrupt you. The only words I wouldn't agree with there is the right thing. If you did what you are doing, you did the right thing. Just because you sold and the market went up more, that doesn't mean that you didn't do the right thing, right? That's what our friend Annie Duke, calls resulting, right? After the fact, sure, I wish I held it because it went up higher, but that's not what I do. I buy this, I sell this. This happened, I sold it. Okay, the market went up more. That doesn't mean I was wrong. Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
Well, here's another thing that he says is sell out when you think you're wrong. Okay. If you're in, you don't have to wait for your stop to get hit, but the minute you think you're wrong, get out. And then he says, and you can always get back in. See, just because you got out doesn't mean that you can't get back in. And then same thing with stops. Have your stop. So what if you get stopped out? I can't tell you how many times I've gotten stopped on a long trade, and then I buy it back higher. And sometimes I buy it back lower. It doesn't matter. So he gives a lot of really sound, practical advice, and particularly about relying on yourself, that how important it is to come prepared every morning before those markets open. And he says, ignore the tipsters, ignore the sheet, all that kind of stuff. So for that matter, I always kind of consider that book as my Bible, if you will,
Can you tell us the name of the book again, please?
Pardon?
Please say the name of the book again and the author.
The Tailored Trading Technique. Now, here's just one more caveat to that. I had a friend, Ron Shear, who had a series of...
Hey, Ron's my buddy. I'm friends with Ron. Ron's my old neighbor.
Ron Shear?
Yeah, I live 2 doors down from him in Westport.
Really? He's right here.
He's in Palm Beach now. Yeah, I know. I know.
Well, he has houses all over the place and stuff. We've been friends for 25 years.
Great guy.
Remember, he had 60 prop shops, and it was generic.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Stock trading, and then he sold it to, the Bank of Canada. And then, I don't know, back and forth. Ron, by the way, invented or originated what they used to call the missiles, the XMIs, which were based on Amex stocks. And so he's just been very creative in this industry for so many years.
Legend.
But some of the traders from his original prop shops down in Miami, who were day traders, and in particular with stocks, said that they used as their Bible Jim Dalton's first book, written 25 years ago. I think it was Mind Over Markets, because in that book, it talked about each day's structure and how that structure develops. Same thing that Taylor talks about. Where does the market open? Is it opening within the previous day's range? How does it trade in that first hour? Does it go for that previous high or low? All these things. So you are staying in the moment and you're seeing how it develops. And Dalton talks basically about 6 to 8 different types of ways, common ways that the market unfolds during the trading day. And of course, now it's a 24-hour type of situation, which is, a different ball of wax. But my husband uses strictly market profile, and he divides it up into the 3 sessions. He divides it up into Asia session, Europe session, and the US session. And now this gives us data points, the highs and lows for this session, or undeveloped areas similar to a gap area. You see, it's all keeping you in the moment and following the market. The market's telling us. So those 2 books, I think, are very synergistic. Jim Dalton's Mind Over Markets, and then written 15 years earlier, 20 years earlier, George Douglas Taylor, The Tailored Trading Technique. Each of these books is very short. If you eliminate the graphs and stuff, it's maybe 80 pages. And I would say each of these books, there's probably about 20 pages that are 99% of the game. So you can take them and just extract these little gems about how does the market open? Where does it open? How does it trade off that opening? And I'll just leave you one last parting shot just to confuse the snot out of you. Okay. So what do we use for the opening? Seriously, it really doesn't matter. Okay. I come in and I use the 8 a.m. time, Eastern Standard Time, because in the old days in New York, that's when all the bond traders would be sitting down on the institutional desks. The bonds used to open up at 8:20. And so everybody was in their seats at 8 a.m. And that's when we would start to see this market activity. So I use that even for the S&Ps. And of course, we have the 9:30 reading because you've got the stocks opening then too. But I still frame it out with that 8 a.m. reading. Now, we can take our same process. This is the importance of routine and ritual. I can take my same process and approach, and I can do that on Asia opening. I can do that on Europe opening. I can do that on Europe close. I can do that at 10:30 a.m. Eastern time. I can take that data point and start to build a framework by which I can then make good decisions about trades where there's an edge. Yet, how do we trade off of that time period? How are we trading relative to that previous 60-minute range? And we can model all this stuff. We can quantify it. It's just to get an edge. It's just might only work 60% of the time. For example, if I look at 3 consecutive 5-minute bars in the first 30 minutes of the day, very powerful edge there in terms of where we might end up at the end of the day. If I look at that between 1 o'clock in the afternoon, there's really not an edge, So we can start to, you see what I'm doing? Just building all these probability models, and it's just like a big old actuarial grid. That's what takes so long, is understanding that the markets are just this giant actuarial grid. But despite that, you'd think, well, just put it all into AI and stuff like that. You can do that. I've done that. Neural networks, all that kind of stuff. You can go down rabbit holes, and trust me, you will have 0 relationships in your life because you will be buried in a room with computers, But despite all that, we still have an edge. We still have an edge in being able to process the outliers, the extreme gaps, those aberrations, even the Trump tweets, right? How we respond to news. So I think that people, first of all, don't ever feel like the machines are taking over. Don't ever feel like you don't have an edge because you are just a lonely peon human out there in the universe. Do your own work and trust that you will develop your feel and the style that works for you. There is not a right or wrong time horizon. A lot of that's just going to depend on your own capitalization. If you are newer to this game, you want to stay with a shorter holding period. Why? Because the longer you have a position on in the marketplace, you're assuming more risk, right? An adverse event can happen at any time. If I'm in the market and I'm out 1 minute later, I really have minimal risk. You see? How much trouble can you get into if somebody has a little timer and says, you got to be out in 60 seconds, okay? You're not going to get rich doing that, but you're going to improve your execution skills, and you have to get over that first. Just being able to, not to sound cliche, trade what you see. So don't go hitting for the home runs or the big moves or anything like that until you feel totally in control with your trade management, which is going to be developing that automatic habit of putting in a stop or pulling it up or taking, a lot of friends get in and they immediately get out of a piece maybe 5 minutes later, which statistically is not optimal. That is the wrong thing to do from a statistical standpoint, but it's the right thing to do if you are newer and you need to get that confidence and manage that trade and minimize the variance in your bottom line. There you go.
Awesome.